Yo, 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 I'm Candy B. I be spinning. Usually I be knitting. You can find me on most places, Ravelry, Instagram, etc. as Candy B Knittin. But today I thought I'd talk about where I'm at with my spinning. I haven't talked about spinning in a while. And also a lot of my knitting really isn't at an interesting place, or I haven't been working on a lot of my knitting projects. So I'm kind of in spinning mode right now. First, I'll start with some finished spinning I've done, and then we'll work from the thing I have the least to say about to the thing I have the most to say about. All right. So last time we were together, I was working on my Ashford traditional, and I had a pound bat I had gotten from a local farmer. I have since finished that spin, and I have not measured this for yardage. This is a 3-ply. I think it's a Rambouillet Merino cross. I remember Merino in my head, but when I look at my notes, it says Rambouillet. But I also know a lot of local farmers have Merino, so I'm gonna say maybe I heard both. It's neither here nor there. It's very rustic, I guess you could say. It's very soft. Usually I say rustic, I mean rough, but it's very just kind of thick and thin. I did it was a giant bat, so I did a long draw with it. It was full of neps. It has a lot of vegetable matter in it, and so it's just super duper sheepy. My plan here, if I have enough yardage, is to do some sort of shawl. I would love to do a fully hand spun shawl with a thicker hand spun. I do a lot of like fingering weight shawls, and so I think it would be nice to have a nice chunky shawl. If not, I think this would make a nice like bandana cowl. And yeah, it's 3-ply. It's full of vegetable matter, very, very rough in like as far as like the way it came together, but it's very soft to the touch. And I also want to dye it. I have this idea in my head. I've mentioned it like maybe 2 years ago that I want to do some like indigo dyeing, and I think this would be a perfect candidate. And I want to like knit a whole shawl and then actually dye the whole shawl when it's done, and maybe do some sort of effect, you know, like a giant fade or something like that. And I think this would be a really great candidate. And so that's why I'm not really bothered by the thick and thin nature and the vegetable matter, because I think it's all going to be really kind of earthy, you know, for lack of a better phrase. So that's that. I also thwacked it to bring a little bit more bounce to the finish, and thwacking just like I literally hit the skeins, and it fluffs it up nicely, and it also kind of felts those individual plies together, and so it's very, very springy and bouncy. So that's that. My next finished object is way on the other side of the spectrum as far as like, okay, we have super ultra local farm bat spun with literal sticks coming out of it. And then I have this little bit here, and I have one more skein of this. And this, I'm pretty sure, and you'll know why I say pretty sure soon, is 100% acrylic. I say pretty sure because my buddy that I spin with from time to time, they came across these, like, I think they ended up getting like 11, 12 pounds of huge rovings of fiber, and they were hopeful that it was gonna be wool, but they did a burn test, and if you're ever questioning what the fiber content of something is, if you burn it, you'll learn pretty quickly. Cotton crumbles, or anything plant-based crumbles, smells like burning paper. Anything wool-based smells like burning hair, which hopefully you don't know what the smell of burning hair is, but if you use hot combs or curling irons, you do know what the smell of burning hair is. And then acrylic melts because it's plastic and it smells like melting plastic. And so they did a burn test, and this is, if not 100% acrylic, mostly acrylic. And they believe it was from, do y'all remember when it was like the trend to do the big arm knitting projects and you end up with like these huge fluffy blankets? It was like right around, like, I guess, pandemic time when I started knitting. It was like you would buy these long rovings of acrylic, and kind of like what Hope McCauley does with her knits, the really chunky sweaters. Pills like god awful. And so we were like, oh, we'll spin with this. And so I started a little sample. This was done on my drop spindle. I just grabbed a piece of fiber off just to see how it was going to do, and then made a little plying bracelet and made a quick 2-ply out of it. And it is like this peachy color, and but it also has like a sheen to it, and it has like pops of yellow and maybe a little pop of purple. This was my first time spinning with 100% acrylic. Requires a lot of twist. Definitely would not do this one long draw, and definitely trying to draft it, was a bit of a hassle. Would not do this on my drop spindle. And so I think I'm going to end up doing it. I have a drop spindle. I have drop spindles. I have a traditional Ashford traditional wheel, and then I have an electric wheel. My electric wheel, I do mostly like really thin singles on, and this was not fun to spin. So I would rather do something thick and quick on my wheel. And I'm thinking maybe a blanket. I also want to like play around with like a wall hanging, because I think it would be really nice to have my hand spun. I would eventually knit with it or weave with it. Something hand spun on display like art, but I definitely don't want to do it with wool because then it's exposed to all the elements. But I think acrylic, I'll have a nice balance of the artistic expression of spinning, but the longevity of acrylic, especially if I decide to do like a couch blanket. I don't have to worry about like, oh, someone got food on it or has to go in the washing machine. But I did this small sample on my drop spindle and another sample on my wheel just to get a feel for it. But what I want to do is actually knit this up and wash it and see what it does, how it reacts, how it finishes different from a wool. It definitely spins different from a wool, but it'd be interesting to see if I get any, biasing, if finishing it. I was talking to my buddy that got this, and I believe they finished some of their skeins, as in soaked it in warm water, either thwacking it or snapping it. And then some of them they didn't finish and they weren't really thinking about it. And so I was just like, that would be an interesting experiment, because the reason you're finishing the wool is because wool grabs to itself. And so you want to complement the characteristics of the wool. So if you're thwacking it, or fulling it out, putting it in boiling water, the wool reacts one way. If you steam it, the wool reacts another way. And so acrylic yarn shouldn't dramatically change during the finishing process. I can't imagine like thwacking an acrylic wool, or acrylic fiber, but it might surprise me. I don't know. I don't usually block my acrylic, like pin them out to block them. I'll put them, I usually, if I'm knitting something in acrylic, I finish them by just putting them in the washing machine and just doing a regular wash and then laying them flat to dry. With my wool, I usually, use my blocking mats and pin things out and measure things out, because I just don't find that acrylic changes that much. But I have pounds and pounds of this stuff to try and see if it's going to do something dramatically different. Now we're going to get to our works in progress. Speaking of my electric wheel, I'll show you my electric wheel project, because it's the same project I've shown y'all before, but it has been a while. And I am spinning this as a one-of-a-kind Kim Dyes Yarn comb top. I had 2 braids of this I got from Shenandoah Fiber Fest 2 years ago at this point. And my electric wheel is still the thing I reach for the least. Like, I have to actively remind myself to use it and pull it out. I have been, since it's been wintertime and I've been meeting up with my friend to go spin, I have been using it a little bit more because it's more portable with the weather being snowy and rainy and cold. It's much easier to carry this than carry my basket through this. Not my basket. This is the basket I carry, carrying my actual big wheel through the snow and ice. This is much more portable, and so I have been using it a little bit more. And this is that. It's Comb Top Superwash Merino. And I'm spinning it up on my electric eel wheel mini. And so I'm getting bobbins about this size, and I'm gonna do a 3-ply with it. And when I say I like to, I've gotten into a groove of spinning rather fine on my electric eel wheel. This is what I mean. I wish I had like usually people use like a penny or a dime so you can see like the actual proportion of the plies, but it's gonna make probably a fingering weight, even though it's gonna be 3-ply. And this is like it's got some strong purples and some like earthy blues, mostly white, and then some like copper pops in it. And I'm not stripping it any kind of way with the fiber. I broke the fiber up into just manageable amounts, and I'm not doing any sort of color management system or anything. So it's just going to be kind of artsy all over the place. So that's that. Then I have my drop spindles, and on my drop spindles, another project you've seen before but have not seen in a while. This is some hip strings fiber, and I had 1 braid of some hip strings fiber. And do I have the tag? Yes. This is a 4-ounce braid of Invincible on their buoy base. So it's Blueface Leicester, Shetland, and Manx Loughton. And I had 1 braid of this, and I had 1 braid of some gray Navajo churro. And I've made a sweater that has a lot of that Navajo churro in it, and it is very pokey. It has a lot of like guard hairs in it. And so I decided if I wanted to use that, I want to blend it with something else. So I blended 1 braid of the Navajo churro, 4 ounces, with 4 ounces of the hip strings. It's also going to give me more yardage to work with. And the original hip strings colorway, it had this kind of rusty red color with little bits of like gold in it. And then it has this like teal color with the same gold. And then it has some darker blue colors. And by the way, when I blended these, I made roll lags. And so this is a roll lag off of some cards. And so I found 3 distinct colorways in the braid, and I broke it up by color, and then I blended each one with equal amounts of the Navajo churro, thinking that, oh, I have 3 separate colors. This will be a little bit more versatile if I just keep the colors separate, and then I can, do a little project over here, a little project over there. And so I did do just a quick 2-ply with the Ready Rustic color and some of the darker blues that are in there. And then I decided I actually do want these colors together. And so what I'm going to do with these 3 distinct colors is do a 3-ply. And so it'll be actually a barber pole situation. And I just held up the 2 plies to each other. And I was just like, actually, this is kind of nice. Because at first I wasn't understanding it, but then I was just like, I bought it from Hip Strings because they had the colors together. They must have put these colors in the same braid for a reason. And so here you can see the red rust and the dark blue. and the finished product will be these colors actually applied together. And here you're seeing, I just took my drop spindle and just wrapped it around my ashford bobbin so I can ply off of this. And I didn't like rewind it. I just continuously wound it on there, and I'll just pull from one end and ply on my wheel rather than do a bunch of really small 3 plies on my my drop spindles. So that's that. I'm thinking, I really am thinking of doing, depending on what the final, because I was thinking of a 2-ply at first, but the final thickness might be more of like a sport weight, might be more of like a worsted. But my original thought was that being the contrast color, the color 2, the color work in an Ooey Gooey by Andrea Mowry. And so it's just going to be a matter of if I can get Gage. Long story short, I know she usually does a sale around her birthday, and the pattern came out last year, and she doesn't do the sale for new patterns. And so this year it'll be an older pattern, so hopefully it'll go on sale later this year during her birthday, and I'll be able to snag that pattern and start gauge watching and see if that's going to work out. I also need to figure out what the main color would be, but I think the idea of like a barber pole, because she usually uses wow, I can't think of the company name, but you guys know what yarn Andrea Mowry is known for, and the kind of like barber poling that it always has. So I think it'll be nice for that. Last but certainly not least, I have my next big sweater spin. So this Christmas, I asked Mr. Rulud for sweater quantity of fiber. And so he got me 500 grams. Well, he got me 2 amounts of 500 grams. He got me kind of like a tannish white color. And then he got me this gray. And he got me 500 grams of this, which is about a pound, which would make a sweater for me. But I wanted to make something for him. And so I know from knitting, or not knitting, yeah, I know, yeah, knitting, spinning and knitting a sweater for him. His final sweater was about 1.3 pounds. And so I was just like, maybe I could get a sweater out of a pound, because his was a mixture of some older hand spun that was a bit thicker and some newer hand spun that was a bit thinner. So I was just like, well, maybe if I got my grist together, I could, but I was just like, I also don't want to push it, because I'd hate to knit. With me, I can be like, oh, I'll just give myself short sleeves, or I'll just make it a crop. You know, he wants his sweater to be a certain size, and he is larger than me. So I'm just like, let me just make sure I have more than enough. And guess what? I have so much fiber. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But I did want to do a little plug. This is from, he did get this from the Woolery, and this is their Blueface Leicester top. And so it's comb top, gray Blueface Leicester. It is absolutely beautiful, really shiny and just smooth, clean. But I was just like, okay, so what do I want to do with this? And I do have plenty of fiber. And so my thought was I wanted to blend it with some white fiber, some natural white undyed fiber. And I had, speaking of that Navajo churro, I had a braid of gray. I also had a braid of white. And so I knew I wanted to use that, because I didn't want to use that just by itself. I was like, I have to blend this with something. And so this this BFL is so like soft and silky. It's like the perfect complement to that. And then, so that was 1 more ounce of fiber. And then I had a bunch of Cheviot that was, it was a pound, but I kept kind of pulling things out of it. I think in the end, it was like 200 to 300 grams were left of it. But I knew it was going to be more than enough. And so I started to blend these 2 together, or 3 together. It was 2 colors, 3 different breeds. And so this is my little blend I did on, this is a drum carder right here. This is where I do all my blending of fiber. and I made little, I guess, nests of fiber or bats or whatever you want to call them, blending the gray and the white together. And I actually think this is going to be really nice. At first, I was going to blend all of that fiber together, and right now I have like a huge pillowcase stuffed to the brim with these guys. And I was like, I have a lot of, what was I thinking? I was like, this might be too much fiber, because what I did was I started with the white, because the first white is the Navajo Chero. The second white is the Cheviot. The Cheviot was roving from R.H. Lindsay, which had a lot of veg matter in it. It had some little neps in it and stuff. And so I wanted to run that through the drum carder. So I was running that to the drum carder and kind of slowly adding in the gray. So it was mostly the white with a little bit of gray in. And so it was like kind of like coming out almost like a skunk. There was like just a long stripe of gray. And then I blended it one more time through the carder. And then I was just like, I still have a lot of this gray left. So I have most of this bag left. This is a 250 gram bag. And then I have one whole 250 gram bag that I haven't even touched yet. And I realized as I was processing all this fiber, wow, I still have a lot to still blend, and I would have to keep running it in order to get it to blend correctly. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to stop here. I have enough for a sweater. I have over 1.5 pounds already blended, and then I have more fiber I could blend if I need it. But I was just kind of getting kind of tired, and I also wanted to start the project. And I feel like this mix came out nice. I thought I wanted it to be this deeper gray, and I probably should have started with the gray and added a little bit of white. But let me see what I got in here in my basket. This is how it's coming up on the bobbin. And I'm getting little pops of gray, little pops of white. And then once I apply it together, it's all gonna kind of come together. And I think it's actually gonna look quite nice, because my husband does have like darker skin, and I do feel like the lighter colors work very nicely. And like I was saying before, his first sweater was just kind of like a mixture of weights and ages, and now this is going to be like kind of his first, like, okay, I'm intentionally spinning this sweater, and it's going to be enough, and this is going to turn into a 3-ply. And so I'm thinking I'm going to do a not drop down. The first time I did a sweater for him, I did a set-in sleeve, a fully seamed set-in sleeve, and this time around I think I'm going to do a top-down raglan out of one of my books, out of my Ann Budd book, where, you know, you just set the gauge and you pick, it's like sweaters from the top down. And so I think this is going to go nicely. And I think I have enough fiber blended. If I don't, I guess I'll just get back to work. But I'm also like in a space right now where this is the project I had to pull out hand spun that wasn't meant for his other sweater and just kind of like make it work. But this time, since I'm like still in the same time frame, I'm in this, what am I trying to say? I've come to a certain place with my spinning where I make a pretty dependable default yarn. So I feel like if at some point I run out of yarn, I'll be able to spin something that is very similar and blend something that's very similar. That's what I'm trying to say. And so that is that. It is the sheen and the color and the softness of the BFL, but then like the toothiness of the Cheviot. Like I just like the crimp of the Cheviot, and then the durability of the Navajo Chero. So I think this is going to be a really solid choice for him. The color, a little light, but I think that's very, like, it just gives sophistication to me. And I've told him this before, I just made him a white cowl, bright, undyed, natural fiber cowl. And I was just like, if it gets dirty, we'll just dye it, you know, and we can over dye it with some other colors or whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But And I also think like if you, with natural fibers, I think you can like lay them out in the sun and that can help get rid of any like discoloration. But I think the gray is going to tone down the white nicely. So I think any kind of, you know, little food here or there, coffee spills, things like that is going to blend nicely into the gray. So that's that. That's all I wanted to show you. That's all the spinning I've been working on. Of course, always let me know what y'all have been working on. How are your knitting projects going? I just kind of feel like I'm kind of in a, not in a funk, but just, I'm just working a little bit on this or doing one row on that. There's nothing that's really like grabbing me that I'm just like, oh, can't wait to pick up this knitting project. And when that I get into that mood, that's when spinning really ratchets up for me. So it's, I like the fact that I have two complementary hobbies, because obviously once I spin it all up, I can knit it all up. Or, you know, knitting tells me, okay, I want to make this type of yarn next, or I get inspired. And so it's nice to have two different skill sets, but they also complement each other and go nicely together. If you want to talk to me in the comments. Please subscribe. Please turn on notifications. Share this video. You can hit me up. I'm candibknittin on Instagram. I've actually got people like starting to like follow me and friend me on Ravelry, which I've never really used Ravelry to communicate or anything like that. So I appreciate people reaching out there and me getting more into that community. Always, you can email me, candibknittin@gmail.com. Oh yeah, this is that knitted fiber. I just knitted up. I just spun. I keep mixing up knitting and spinning all episode, but yeah, just a nice little 2-ply, really nice. Until next time, peace.